Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. It is great to be back with you for another episode of the podcast. Thank you for being a very valued listener. I hope that you are a returning listener, but I'm also excited for new listeners. If this is your first time listening, I hope that after this episode, you find that this podcast has value, and I encourage you to subscribe as well as share it out with your family, your friends, your colleagues. I also ask that if you listen on Apple Podcasts, to please leave a review. Let me know what you think about the podcast. I'm always interested in your feedback. In this episode, I want to talk about self-awareness and our ability to perceive our own emotions, to perceive other people's emotions. I mean, sometimes self-awareness, we could talk about EQ, which is emotional intelligence. But specifically, I've worked with all sorts of people in all sorts of capacities. And sometimes you may be around somebody or work with someone and you see them and you think they don't understand how they're being perceived. You think they don't understand or don't perceive how they're being received by other people. Because, if you know what their intention is, then you're like, okay, they're missing the mark. And, sometimes it might even be in like a boardroom type of a meeting and you're looking around at everybody else and the speaker, the leader, just doesn't quite understand that they either have lost the group, have offended the group, or really don't know the needs of the group. And that happens when we don't have self-awareness. And lacking self-awareness can certainly be problematic because it can be an impediment to us developing strong relationships, whether that's interpersonal relationships or business relationships. So I want to talk about self-awareness, internal self-awareness and external self-awareness. And when I'm talking about internal self-awareness, I'm really talking about how we perceive ourselves, what we see as our own values, the things that excite us or that we are passionate about, and even understanding and identifying our own emotions, our behaviors, knowing our own strengths and our own weaknesses, and also how we impact others. It's really it's really good for us to have an internal sense of awareness, because when we understand ourselves, then that understanding can really forge the way to personal satisfaction, discipline, and self-control, and perhaps even just a better sense of happiness. Now, the other category of self-awareness, which is an external self-awareness, and what I mean by that is understanding how other people view us. So what are other people perceiving as our values? What are they perceiving as our passions? What are they perceiving as our behaviors, our thoughts, our feelings, our strengths, and our weaknesses? How do they see us? It's important that we have an external sense of self-awareness and understand how other people see us, because when we see ourselves or we understand how other people see us, then it can help us be more compassionate, more empathetic, and take other people's perspectives into consideration, especially when we're interacting with them. And when we don't understand how other people see us, when we see ourselves, don't see ourselves as they see us, then we tend to have more conflict with each other. And the relationships or the interactions are less productive and perhaps less effective. Now, conversely, when people see us, when we see ourselves as other people see us, and we understand what they're seeing, then we tend to be more productive and more effective in our relationships. And so one of the ways for us to improve our self-awareness, to improve our interactions with others, because ultimately, if we are interacting with other people, then the goal is for us to interact in peace, even when there's disagreement, right? For there to be a peaceful resolution, peaceful interactions, productive involvement with others, right? One of the ways for us to improve our self-awareness is by asking ourselves questions. And sometimes we may say, well, why? Why? But I would encourage you to not ask why, but to ask what. The reason why I say don't ask why is because sometimes when we're asking why, the saying why could encourage negative thoughts or answers, right? Why did I have a bad interaction with this customer? Well, I guess I'm not cut out for sales, right? So sometimes asking why can incite a negative response. Or on the other hand, it can encourage us to kind of land on an answer that just feels true, but might not be true. So instead of asking why, let's ask what. Because a what question can create exploration. So here's an example, right? Why did I get into an argument with person A? Instead of asking why, the question can be, what am I arguing with person A about, right? Or what can I do to avoid an argument with person A? You see, so it kind of reframes the question, and it leads to maybe a more expansive thought about solving the problem. Because then if we're asking what, then we are also exploring not just problem solving, but perhaps thinking about ourselves, our own disposition, what I could have done or what I did to create the outcome, right? So another example, instead of asking why do I keep running into roadblocks? A what question is, what can I do to make progress on this issue? Right. So I think I really like that idea. And this was a tip that I came across some time ago that I thought might be useful to share in this episode. Instead of asking why, asking what, as we're trying to improve our self-awareness, our internal self-awareness and our external self-awareness. Another way to improve our self-awareness is to get honest feedback from a critic who's also a champion, right? So by that, I mean, it might not be a good idea to get criticism from somebody that dislikes you, somebody that might, want your position, somebody that might want to see you fail, somebody that might be jealous of you. That is probably not the ideal person to get criticism from. However, that person who is your champion, that one who wants to see you win, who wants to see you succeed, but can also give us real honest feedback. That could be your spouse, that could be your friend, that could be a parent, that could be your supervisor, your manager, that could be a clergy member, someone who knows you well enough to provide the criticism, but is also in your corner, who wants to champion your success. That's a great person to get honest feedback from. Not someone who wants to help you or hurt you, but somebody who wants to help you. Okay. Not having an awareness of ourselves. When we don't, we may find ourselves in circumstances where we have conflict after conflict and we think everybody else is the problem without having a careful examination of self, right? Kind of that redundant error, having repeated problems or the same problem over and over, or making the same mistakes over and over, or getting the same unwanted outcome over and over. We may say, man, what's wrong with these people, right? I went over here to building A and these people didn't get it right and got into an argument with them. I went to building B and I dealt with these people and they didn't get it right and I got into an argument with them. And I went to building C. These people, they don't have it right and I got into an argument with them, right? Well, perhaps building A and people in building B and the people in building C all have a problem. However, you or I may be the only thing that they have in common. And if we are not self-aware, then we will miss that our behaviors, our attitudes, our language could be the common denominator that creates the problem. And we miss an opportunity to win, right? So being self-aware makes us be reflective, perhaps introspective, and also exploratory, because we're asking what? What did I do? What could I have said? In what way could I have handled this differently, right? So perhaps it may be good exercise for you to go to a trusted individual and say, look, I want to improve in this area of my life. What can you tell me about myself that I might not realize? And that can be a tough, if the person that you're asking is honest and forthcoming and direct, then we have to be prepared for what they're going to say. And whatever they give you, even if it stings, sit with it. Sit with it, turn it over, examine it, decide, is this really true about me? If this person is saying it's true and this person is my champion, it very well may be true. And then we can go about doing some personal development, some personal evolution to improving ourselves in those areas where we need to improve, because the goal is to win. However, if we are not having the success that we want in our interpersonal relationships, in our business relationships, and our communication, then we're not going to win. And we could be the greatest impediment to our own success because we're just not self-aware. I hope that this has been helpful to you. Listening to it, I think, okay, I need some people to give me some feedback. I always ask the audience for feedback because I might be thinking I'm doing an awesome job on the podcast. And I think I'm doing a decent job on the podcast, but I need your feedback. I want to know, what do you think about the podcast? What do you think about my delivery? Perhaps I am leaving you hanging. Maybe you want more detail in what I'm sharing with you. Perhaps the episodes are too long. Maybe the episodes are too short. But I really do welcome your feedback because I want to make sure that when you come to Nora Speaks, you're getting what it is that you came for. So I look forward to your feedback. I look forward to your insights. And until next time, stay in peace.
We were brought here as a piece of property. And to keep that piece of property, it is to not allow the property to know the value of the property. What I mean by that, if you had known the history of yourself, you would not have been made a slave. And you won't be a slave now if you have a knowledge of yourself. It's hard to enslave a person that have equal knowledge with you. You just can't do it. And so this knowledge of yourself is the thing that will free you from what you have been suffering from.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, If you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, noramuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.